Let's see if it works. Preparing the stream.
Sounds kind
Setting
of
up the
phallic
meeting.
when you say it like that.
What number is this? 174?
Correct.
Done. And we are live, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. We are live, ladies
Hey!
and gentlemen, boys and girls. How are you doing? Tom's just setting up his mic because, you know, we were supposed to
1, 2.
simultaneously record and we forgot. The good thing about today is that I'm going to be able to actually show some of the things we're talking about, which will be nice.
What?
Really?
Check 1, 2. Sound check 1, 2.
So while Tom is checking in the background, I can tell you about the Model Y that's sitting, it's about
1, 2. Sound
280 miles that way, I think.
Check 1, 2. Hey,
I don't
there.
have
Hi
a
there,
Y
folks.
yet. I do not have a Y.
What did they
yet,
say
which
to
is
you?
upsetting. Actually, last week I got an email, one of those,
Okie dokie.
Get
We
ready,
are live
prepare.
and recording.
but it was nothing specific. So upsetting. Still don't have it. But
What have
I
they
hear
told
that they
you?
actually haven't started production
What?
until next week, that they've got people in there, but they don't actually start production until Monday.
That's because they're all putting in plexiglass barriers to one another, I think is what's going on there.
I believe that is correct, Tom. So we'll see. We'll see. Getting excited about it. Getting excited.
I don't love this
All right,
setup.
I
I
have
really
now-
screwed this up. I apologize, gentlemen and ladies.
That's fine. You know, there's hundreds of people on YouTube watching right now waiting for you to get set up.
Are there hundreds?
Well, 9.
Tens of hundreds?
9. 91 less than 100.
91 less than 100? That's an order of magnitude less than 100.
It is almost 2 orders of magnitude, in fact.
I really wish somebody could explain orders of magnitude to me
It's
to
just
a certain extent.
tens.
It's just 10.
It's just
10,
tens.
100,
A
1,000.
10 is an order of
10,000.
magnitude. Yeah,
10.
5 orders of magnitude.
5 orders. Check 1, 2. Check 1, 2.
Oh,
Oh,
delicious water.
well, this was all ready to go until I realized it wasn't ready to go, and now
Joel
it's ready
Sapp's
to go.
in the
again.
house.
That
Nigel's
was
in the house.
pretty quick there, Tom.
What? Yeah, thankfully,
Jonathan.
I'm
Hey,
an expert, so I
kids.
am recording on my side. Hopefully, you guys are also recording on your
yeah, we're
side.
recording. So
Yeah, I've
let's
got
get
a-
started.
Recording
What?
is rolling.
Roll
All right,
in,
ladies and gentlemen,
roll
boys
in.
and girls, it's time to start the show. We're doing Talking Tesla 174. It's a patron show. So what we're going to do is we're going to give it to the patrons first. We're going to send it out to the other people. We are actually doing this live because we wanted to get some interaction. We have so many people watching. It's a little crazy. I think we might break the internet. Right now, we currently have 12 people. Count them. 12 people. It's a little scary.
And that's with giving people warning. Maybe that's the deal, is we gave people warning and they were like,
knew
no,
this.
thank you. We watched the
They knew.
last one. We don't want any part of this.
The big question to the watchers is: do you want gallery view where you can see all of us, or do you want it speaker view where you just see the person that's speaking?
I would say gallery view personally. That's what I would like to see while I was
Yeah,
watching.
that way your face, Mel, is smaller.
Yeah, that is probably for the best. I'll go. with
Robert's
that on
wearing
that one.
his favorite dad hat style.
That's
hat. We
right.
don't have hats on today. I'm
We got,
wearing.
we got our various talking Tesla swag that we're all sporting.
Yeah, I don't have any Talking Tesla swag. I got my homeboy swag.
Oh, here, Mel, let me give you the hat.
That'd be awesome. If, like, you actually had a hat.
I had
That
a
would've
hat. That'd be cool.
You should have like set that up. That would have been some
Yeah.
high dollar.
I don't think Mel would have
production
taken my hat because, you know,
No, it's got
it could have
COVID. all over it.
COVID-19 on it.
value. The
Nice.
COVID hat. Can you get COVID through the hair follicles?
Oh, I'm sure.
No.
Hey, we went a whole 2 minutes before we mentioned COVID. That's pretty impressive.
That is called the COVID 2 minute. You cannot have a conversation for more than 2 minutes without coming back to COVID. And it's fair enough. Every pandemic, you're allowed to do that.
Every pandemic. So the next one also will have the same 2-minute rule.
Yeah. If it's a good
Okay.
pandemic, if it's a weak pandemic, like H1N1, yeah, no. But this one's solid. It's really
Solid.
bringing it.
This is a solid pandemic. Yeah. I'd like to see the criteria for solid pandemics, but I guess we're seeing it now.
Yeah, well, we're going to talk a little bit later about some of Elon's misconceptions about this pandemic. And I can't wait to get into it because he's kind of pissing me off. You don't mind me saying
Yeah.
so?
A friend of mine, Paul, who's probably watching this live right now, he actually wanted me to ask you some questions just because he wanted to see if 2 ER docs would be as pissed off as most mortal men would be pissed off, or women for that matter.
Oh, I'm pretty pissed. But let's do the first. Let's do the first thing you've got here. I'm looking at the doc, and
It's kind
on
of
the
a
doc here
feel
it
good
says,
story that Robert put in here.
all right,
Yeah,
let's
I was
talk about it.
having these like, I was pondering this, and
Oh,
I even
ponderation.
sent you guys a Voxer on it saying, we should look at something like this. How is the environment getting better in lockdown? The environment's not locked down. We are, and we're the ones who are making the environment so, messed up. So as soon as I sent that Vox over to you guys, I thought, well, I could be going to sleep right now because I have to go to work, or I could actually do this myself, which I then did. So a little less sleep, a little more entertainment. Nitrogen dioxide, a nasty pollutant that comes from burning fossil fuels. There was a study, which Mel is showing in Science Daily, where they looked at northern China, the Western Europe, and the United States, and they compared Q1 to Q1, so 2020 to 2019, to see what was the difference in nitrogen dioxide. And in China, it was down between 40 and 60%. I mean, that's something that stunned the scientists, because that's a decrease that no one ever dreamt of. We've been, we talk a lot about CO2 on the show, and CO2 levels have been rising. They're ginormous. It's kind of like, a precursor to disaster. And so I don't have numbers from that in here, but the nitrogen dioxide's down as much as 60% in China. In Western Europe and the United States, 20 to 38% decrease. Again, unbelievable. And where I live in Santa Monica, California, I look out from about the 4th floor and I can see back towards the San Gabriel Mountains and the San Bernardino Mountains. And I've seen them almost every day. If there isn't a marine layer, then I can really see far. And I haven't experienced this before. It's really impressive. They also looked at particulate matter. That's this PM 2.5, little tiny things that come from burning mostly diesel and thick oils. And those little tiny pieces are 2.5 microns. Not only can they get into your nose and mouth, down into your lungs, but they can get through the wall in your lung and into your blood vessels and end up stuck in your brain and other organs and cause.
What?
That's not cool.
What?
Like,
No.
Are those the particulates that, they say that people who live close to freeways and stuff like that, are those the same particulates that those people are most exposed to?
Yes. They're the ones that cause kids to have like learning disabilities, much more asthma and chronic lung problems. It's been directly linked to deaths when they do autopsies and find loads of PM 2.5. So cut to the chase. PM 2.5 also decreased year over year, 35% in northern China. Amazing. Amazing.
I think we talked about this last time, but it turns out that human beings are filthy. We're absolutely filthy. In the chat room,
it's our conveyances.
It's how we get around. It's how we live, which is kind of us. A couple of people here in the chat room have noticed like an increase in bird life. I just read a thing yesterday about how the whales are having lots of sex with other whales, and there's been this explosion, or at least they've come out from the deepest, darkest depths of the ocean. There's more birds everywhere. It's some parts of the planet are very excited about this pandemic. They're like, "Yay, pandemic!"
What are the whale thing? Can you extrapolate on that? The whales are coming out because they don't hear cars.
No, because of all the ships have stopped and there's all the fishermen have gone away.
That makes way more sense.
Yeah.
And they can't hear the freeway. Like the LA freeway noise is so much better. I'm going for a swim. What?
And all those filthy humans.
Sex under the Golden Gate Bridge because there's no cars on it. Just like this place is lovely.
Yeah, like the water smells nicer because all the filthy humans aren't in it.
Interesting. But then the downside in this article is that there is more ozone at the surface of the Earth. Now, would you trade PM2 for surface ozone, or is it just like one bad thing for another bad thing?
Why is there more surface ozone?
Well, it's because the nitrogen dioxide is down. And it turns out that nitrogen dioxide inactivates ozone, or it turns it back into oxygen from O3. So the ozone is up because the nitrogen dioxide is down. And ozone is not good either. It's a highly oxidizing chemical. So when if you inhaled a bunch of ozone, your lungs would get toasted. And in fact, it's even used here in Los Angeles to clean the water. So we don't chlorinate the water in Los Angeles as much as other cities because we have this enormous setup in northern LA County near Sylmar that's a water treatment plant. And in it, they have, and I've been there, this,
Me too.
like it's the size of a large room filled with water, and they zap it with, I don't know how many volts of electricity, creating ozone, which sterilizes the water. But it's not good for us to get directly in touch with ozone.
So is this the kind of thing that the fossil fuel industry is going to be able to glom onto and be like, look, if we get rid of this, we're going to have all this ozone. Is there another alternative? Like, can we bake like some lovely biscuits and they'll eat the ozone? Like, is there an alternative, something to get rid of ozone?
Yeah, the alternative is don't burn anything. Don't burn oil, period. Because that's where the ozone is coming from. So is the nitrogen dioxide.
It's not coming from so the ozone's not coming from natural things.
Now it's just another byproduct of burning things. It's another byproduct of pollution.
But it says here, it's a secondary pollutant formed when sunlight and high temperatures catalyze chemical reactions in the lower atmosphere. So
yeah, I think it's the substrate for those chemical reactions are the products of burning things.
Interesting.
I know there's other stuff, like there's certain pesticides that when you spray them near the surface of the earth, they can help create ozone. There's a number of things that can do that. But I think
it used to be the hairspray, right? The stuff in your hairspray cans, right? Was causing the hole in the ozone.
CFCs?
Those
we
were
need to bring back the
carbons?
CFCs. Is that
That's
so?
right.
Like we stop driving cars, we bring back hairspray. It's like a weird, bizarro 50s kind of situation.
That's
I had to do a wardrobe
humans.
change, and
What is that? Is that a coronavirus?
this is a picture of the
Nice.
window of the Cybertruck broken.
Nice. Oh, that's right.
Where'd you get that shirt, Mel? I've never seen that one.
Ken Milne sent this to me. I don't know where he got it from, but it's
Turn around. Is it
Man.
an official Tesla shirt or no? It came from. Oh, I see. It's a Cybertruck. I think that's a shirt they were selling.
Oh, well,
Really?
I didn't catch that one. I wasn't living on the store that long at that time.
But maybe not.
So I think the take home point here is that this shows the world in a real life experiment that not burning fossil fuels for ships, planes, cars, trains, trucks is good for us. It's good for the environment. And these levels have not been seen ever since monitoring began in 1990. So this is a fantastic side effect to this terrible pandemic. And I wait until the studies come out that say this many lives were lost to COVID-19 and this many lives were saved from the lack of pollutants and other damage to the environment. Not saying anything is justified. I think it's just an indication this terrible pandemic, which we're working through, is giving us a real life experience, a real world look at what we could have if we transitioned out of fossil fuels.
Yeah, but on the downside or the other side of this, right, we're seeing dollar average gas prices across the nation, which is going to eventually have the exact opposite effect. And we talked about it 2 weeks ago, where gas prices were getting so cheap, crude oil prices were getting so cheap, and then the other, the secondary downside of it is obviously once we come out of this, people are gonna, there's a lot of people that don't have jobs. We don't know what that's going to look like. Are people going to want to still stretch to buy electric cars that are going to cost more? It's really it's interesting. Like, did it set it forward because everybody's seeing all this amazing clear skies and what the world could be, and is that offset or more than offset by the financial nightmare that this whole thing has caused? It's really a kind of it's a tug of war between like capitalism and the earth in some way, which obviously has been going on in one way or the other for a very long time as it is. I hope that it does, but it's also, you're hearing that like some EV companies have slowed their roll, like the Lincoln Rivian partnership has been put on pause. They're still moving forward with the Ford part of that partnership, but the Lincoln specifically part of that partnership is on hold. Volkswagen still says that they're going to be putting out their 4 vehicles, but we don't know.
And Nigel Weir in the chat room is saying that this might bankrupt a bunch of oil producers. And I know that some people have said this is actually going to make renewables more desirable, electric cars more desirable. I don't really understand the economics of that, because like you say, when gas is $1 a gallon, I think people are going to go buy giant SUVs, but it hasn't been great for renewable energy as well. Although, did you hear that this month, for the first time ever, overall in the US, more than 50% of the energy produced is from renewables?
That's amazing. But that's cool, because we're using less energy too, right?
Yeah. Using less energy. It's the summer months. There's lots of solar and all that stuff, but
there's no planes, or very few planes flying.
Right.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I know that I'm making a lot of energy.
I'd love to see, if any trillions of, I don't know, I didn't look at the new House bill that passed, but I don't know how many of those trillions, if we're talking about multi-trillion-dollar infrastructure, spending, jobs, getting people back to work, potentially the answer could be this time to do it in renewables. It just depends on the will. At this point, it's the will of the people that will decide.
Yes.
But
it seems with the current government in charge, you're not getting that. If things were different, then it would be an enormous opportunity to rebuild the infrastructure, a clean infrastructure. But I don't see anybody signing that puppy off in the White House. Thank you very much.
Any other comments in the YouTube about any of this, Melvis?
Nigel says that VW is saying that the ID.3 will be out in Europe in July. So not everybody has stopped electric vehicle production, but it does seem that people are taking their foot and putting it on the brake, which is good for Tesla if they can get back to production, bad for everybody else.
Yeah. And, they're still selling, orders of magnitude more vehicles of their cars, even though they're more expensive. They are cheaper. That's the other interesting dichotomy of it, right? There are cheaper vehicles than the Teslas, but they're massively outselling the other vehicles that exist. So good for them.
Yeah, and actually, Joel Sepp is noting that, did you hear that the administration, excuse me.
Gesundheit. There's a mute button.
The administration allowed Nevada to install I think it's the world's biggest solar plant. It's going to be like 1 gigawatt solar and storage about 30 miles north of Las Vegas. So that's exciting.
And where are those panels coming from? Do we know?
China. I can't back that up. I don't know where they're coming from.
Yeah, I mean, some of them might be, but hopefully some of them can be coming from Panasonic factory in Buffalo as well.
I think it's enough for about 300,000 homes. In this area in Nevada, if you go south of Las Vegas, you've got the, what's it called? The big giant solar plant with the mirrors and the, what's the place called? Yes, that one. And now you've got this big solar thing, and Joel's saying 350 megawatts of storage, which what they're going to do is offset, it gets hot there and everybody turns their air conditioner on when they get home from work, when they're working. And so they're basically going to suck up all the energy during the day and turn on the batteries from 4 to 9 o'clock at night, which is pretty exciting. And it's owned by Buffett. Warren Buffett.
Warren, as in Warren.
Why don't we just get Joel on the show? Why don't I just leave and have Joel? Because he clearly knows more than I know. Joel, you're on now.
Welcome to the team, Joel.
I'm off the show. So can we talk about Elon? I just want to get to it. Can we talk?
You want to talk about it? All right. So Elon was recently on the Joe Rogan show for 2 hours. So Elon doesn't have time to do a lot of things, but he has 2 hours to spend with Joe Rogan. And I watched that when it happened, a little bit of it, and I watched it today and took some notes. The really fascinating thing about it is Joe averages about 2 to 3 million views on his YouTube page. You guys have any guesses as to how many watches? Well, you just put it up on the screen. So
I don't know, 12.7 million.
12.7 million since May 7th, dude. That is 10 days. 1.2 million views a day on average. That is and Elon wasn't even, out of his mind. Although one thing that was interesting, and I don't know if you guys picked up on this, they both appeared to have like a glass of whiskey potentially. There was some ice and a short amount of liquid in it. And no one ever says anything when people drink, but you smoke a little weed and the freaking sky is falling. So I don't know if they were drinking. It appeared to me that there were beverages and also plastic water bottle. Don't you think that's weird? Don't you think Elon shouldn't be drinking out of a plastic water bottle?
Well,
Dude,
probably Joe gave it to him. So
the amount of plastic being used now is it's orders of magnitude greater than before the pandemic. And how can you say anything? How can you say anything? You don't want
a lot of single-use plastic bags being used. But I guess on the plus side is like, I guess if we didn't drive motor vehicles that use fossil fuels and we didn't use trucks that use fossil fuels, and maybe our use of plastics would be okay, but we still don't want them getting into the ocean. So, you got to keep track of them.
Well, Nigel Weir says on the chat here that, Tesla uses plastic seats in their cars. So, some plastic in the Tesla universe too.
They're vegan.
They're plastic.
Apparently vegans are made out of plastic. I don't know.
So Tom, what were the key things that came out of this 2-hour, sometimes bizarre, sometimes frightening, sometimes very annoying discussion?
Yeah, so there were a lot of interesting things. Like they talked at the beginning a lot about the Neuralink, and he talked about potentially being able to, that we're already using some of this stuff. People are using it for Parkinson's. They've had some of this stuff implanted in people, but this could potentially give you eyesight. So this was a question that I had for you. If they implant this Neuralink into you, drive the contacts like into the brain where they need to. He's saying something like you could have eyesight even if you don't have an optic nerve. You guys want to extrapolate on how that would work?
Yeah, they would drop the Neuralink threads into the very back, the posterior lobe, where you have your visual cortex. How? Then there's it's like that where they have like 4 steps and then they have a space. There was a miracle and then a couple more steps. So there's a little bit unknown about that, but it is theoretically, possible.
But would you need to wear like a camera that was hooked to that, like a Bluetooth camera on your glasses that was hooked? So then your brain would be transmitting what the camera is seeing into something you could understand, because your eyes are still not going to work without an optic nerve, correct?
I was assuming that your whole eyeball becomes fake neural network. It's the camera in the back of it. You have the wires and connect to the optic nerve if it's there, or just go directly back there. But this is all theoretical and it's all interesting, but don't be thinking like, oh, by next week, the blind will see. The dead shall walk.
He did say 5 to 10 years.
Yeah, he did say that. That's not true, but he did say that.
Yeah, but the way Tesla works, like the Tesla ventilator that they created uses like air conditioning parts and stuff. I would imagine that like in your shoulder here, you might have the right side Tesla camera and the left side Tesla camera. And in your butt, they would stick the tail camera. So you could have like 360 and you could actually tell this neural net, I want to walk to, I don't know, Ralph's. Take me to Ralph's. And without even thinking, the neural net will have you walk to Ralph's.
Using your butt cam? I don't really understand. I don't really understand why the butt cam had to be part of it, except for it's probably funny for us to say butt cam on the show a few times.
And you could get the neural network to actually work on the smooth muscles of your rectum, and then you could talk out of your anus.
Wow. We pushed that right. We pushed that right to the edge there, which was really great. Also talked about potentially being able to use it for limb control in people who are quadriplegic. So a lot of potentially very, very exciting things. And then some weird stuff they started to go into like, you won't need to talk to one another. And
I can't wait.
One weird that doesn't mean you don't communicate, Mel. It just means you don't have to actually talk. So you transfer information with your thoughts. But then he said in a benign AI, this was a quote, in a benign AR scenario, we are along for the ride. But he didn't mention the non-benign AI scenario. Yeah. Like, do you want to be along for the AI ride in a benign scenario? Robert probably does. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
I do.
instead of sending out your Twitter anger on Twitter, I can just send it directly to you and throw all that horrible nastiness directly into somebody's brain. Sounds great.
But the real, like, the way that he would, interestingly, he managed to like simplify it in a way, I think that, well, at least I could understand. I think a lot of people could understand. We're already being augmented with our smartphones, right? We have our smartphones with us at all times. It's the interface between us and our smartphone that's super slow. So from that perspective, I was like, yeah, that kind of makes a little bit of sense. Like, it's just additional computing power in some ways, which is a weird thing to say because of all of the computing power that the brain already has.
Yeah, but think about it. If like you're in a debate and you have your cell phone and there's like 6 people debating, you could look down and quickly grab some statistic. Oh, there's this many people who live in Myanmar. Like, I don't memorize all that, but we use our phones for that all the time. And let's say you're the person at the table who has no cell phone and no laptop. Right. Are you at an advantage or not? And if you up that like 1,000 or 100,000 fold as far as power, computing, recall speed, the people who get these implants, and they have that kind of neural net connection to the web, they're going to be so much more, I'm theoretically so much more equipped that everybody's going to want it. I mean, how do you keep up? And that's what he kept saying. And it's like, it's not a matter of you want it or don't you want it. It's like, do you want a car, which gets you to work and helps you carry groceries and takes you on a vacation? Yeah, people do, and they go for it.
The good thing is that this will radically enhance people, but it will be spread very evenly through society. It won't just be the rich people, the poor people will get it as well. So there's nothing to worry about here about further, the rich and the poor divide it's going to be flattened because of this, right?
But he did talk about that because he even said, like, you could take out a loan to get this implanted, and because you're so much more capable, you could actually pay it off in your productivity. So he's even thinking now, like, about like the finance arm of his neural net for that very reason. So it's not just the rich. And again, I don't know how much it is. So then they started to get into simulation theory. But before we talk about that, there's this AI. This one question is sort of philosophical that I thought about. So they talked about it's an extension of yourself. It makes your online ghost, for instance, right? So you pass away, but you've had this neural net implanted. It's taken all of your memories, and all of your memories can now live on in this online field. I get whatever it is, a drive, a server farm, wherever it is. And that's you live in this box, and whatever they put that in is you. It's all your memories, all your thoughts, all your depression. Maybe you don't need medication, but maybe you do. I don't know. But the real question is, like, do you think that knowledge could help us today? Because then we would potentially, we put a lot of energy into our legacies and wanting to be remembered and like, what do we mean on this planet? If we knew our memory would live on forever in this box, would we stop doing things for our legacy in that way? And would that help us?
Well, I get another question because it's very deeply, if I had superpowers because I turned up at another planet, but my dad was dead, could I go to an ice castle and talk to him?
Well, if you could log into your dad's server, you could.
Right.
But it wouldn't go into the past. It would have to be from like the first person to get neural net. You could always be able to talk to. Like, if we had put a neural network into Martin Luther King, we could like talk to him, or Einstein, we could potentially talk to him.
Nobody pick up the fact that was the plot from Superman?
Yeah, no, I did.
Well,
Jor-El.
thank you.
Are you
please.
Jor-El or Kyle or whatever it is? I don't know. Was that technically not a neural net though? Was it?
But it brings up and lots of science fiction writers and have written about this. Yeah. Just because you take all of my memories and do all that stuff, if it was theoretically possible, you could suck it out of my brain, where you have people talk about this one axon to one filament connection, which theoretically could happen. If you could take all that stuff out and put it over in a computer, would it be conscious? Or would it just be the ghost in the machine? It's not really conscious. It's not really you. Would it be you? I think it's above our pay grade for philosophers and other smart people to talk
But
about.
it's like,
But I don't want to live forever. At some point, I want to be done. Okay.
Yeah, but what if
Done.
other people want you to live forever?
right.
And
But
what if,
that's not going to happen?
what if, well, I don't know, man. I was there at ASEP when you gave a talk and you brought tears to 1,000 people's eyes.
Oh, stop it.
But
No big
if
thing.
the server has enough depth of data and is fast enough, I mean, like we already know there's data that shows, or there are studies that show how fast does our brain turn things around? How quickly does the information travel from area to area? We've quantified already so much of our own brain function. There's still some mystery in that box, but I think we've come a long way to actually knowing that. And what happens in 5 years, 10 years, at the rate things are growing, right? What's that, the doubling, I forgot his name. It's named after some scientist.
Moore's Law.
Moore's Law, yeah. The rate at which it's doubling and the capacity that we're gaining is pretty impressive. I think that we may be at that threshold pretty soon. And from the AI literature I've looked at, it's, yeah, it could be horrible and it could be great. It depends on who buys, you know, if Kim
Just
Jong,
Kimmy.
if Kimmy's the first dude to hook his brain up, that would be not, that would be challenging.
Well, Elon's whole thing about is he fears this if somebody gets too far ahead, whether it's Amazon, whether it's China, whether it's, it could be very bad. And so he's trying to make it more available theoretically through this nonprofit to everybody. So nobody gets too far ahead. And theoretically, even the people without so much cash get it. But you can definitely see them. There's lots of sci-fis about this, that if a certain group gets it, usually the rich people, they basically become a different species because they are so much smarter than everybody else. And the rest of us just become subservient to them. And, you know, even in the time machine, H.G. Wells, 50 years ago, was kind of like that. But after a while, those of us that are poor and don't have the stuff get angry and come and eat you. So I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Just give it to the poor people too, or they'll come and eat you.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of other things, the simulation theory thing, this was interesting to me, and I hadn't thought about it, but like, so hydrogen, 13.8 billion years ago, most everything was just a hydrogen molecule. And at some point, that hydrogen molecule gained consciousness.
More deep philosophy.
And like it's really kind of mind blowing. You know, he talks about that, and it's like basically we talk about you really are a brain in a jar. That's what we are. We're like a brain in a jar. So what difference does it make what the jar looks like on some level?
Absolutely. Right? In fact, I would get a better looking jar than this thing. I'd get the Brad Pitt jar.
That's true.
Yeah, but then nobody would understand that it was you. That's part of the problem.
That's fine.
We could, yeah, that's all right.
You could have that jar for your own image of yourself. Since
we could give him like a better Australian accent than he currently has. It'd be great.
Oh, we could change him completely. We could make him a woman, but he could see himself as Brad Pitt. It just could, you know, the possibilities are staggering.
I don't even want to think about why you came up with that particular situation. So we'll just move on from that. And then,
but you know, his timeline, let's just go back to his timeline, because all of this is pie in the sky and theoretic. And this is like, as somebody in the chat room was saying, this is like full self-driving. It's always 5 to 10 years away for the rest of time. It's
That's
always
true.
5
it
to
is
10 years
5 to
away.
10 years away. But
this
I think,
is 2032.
Yeah.
We don't know. I mean, it all depends on the technology, the acceptance, you know, so many things that happened in history jump. Like nothing happens for 100 years. And then in 3 years, some amazing sequence of steps occurs. And then you've got a new amazing breakthrough, the telephone, the light bulb, the movie camera. I mean, it's like things are kind of like ticking along maybe, and then all of a sudden, boom, there's an explosion. I think the same thing goes here. And nowadays, with the technology world that we have and how things are moving so quickly, I think it's hard to predict. I don't think we're going to be implanting electrodes in our visual cortex and seeing out of our butt very soon. But some of the stuff that he talks about, Makes a great deal of sense. And that's why I think Elon inspires so many of us.
Yeah, super interesting to talk about. And then he started to talk about going back to work in Fremont.
Can we talk about that?
It's interesting because I watched about an hour and 20 minutes of the whole thing. And then I had to, I think, go to work or something. And I never got back to it. But I was satisfied because I listened to it for 10 minutes and I was like, oh my God, he hasn't done anything stupid. And then I listened to it for half an hour and, oh my God, he hasn't done anything stupid. It's a great day. And I got to an hour and I was just elated. So tell me, Tom, did he?
It's funny that you mentioned that because right about an hour 19, I wrote down some time codes. He said, and I quote, "You should have the right to take a risk with your own life." So this was in conjunction of he wants to reopen the factory. The state of California is still in lockdown because of the COVID.
It was at that time.
It's in a slide. Yeah, it was at that time. It's now in a sliding state of opening, although depending on who you talk to, what parts of the state are opening at different times. So he wanted to reopen his factory and the state told him unequivocally no. And he decided to do it anyway. It was
Alameda County.
Alameda told him no.
Which is the place in which Fremont factory exists. It's not the state. Exactly.
And so he decided that wasn't good enough for him. So he was going to reopen the factory. But should you have the right to take a risk with your own life in this case?
So let's unpack that, because in general, you do get to do whatever you want with your life in general. If I choose to kill myself, there's not too much anybody can do about it. If I decide to drive very fast on the freeway, and I could die, I significantly increase my chance of dying. I'm driving at 150 miles an hour. Is that okay? No, that's fundamentally not okay. Why is that fundamentally not okay? Because I'm putting everybody around me at risk. So his argument is, I get to go out and do whatever I like. I can go back to work. I can just do whatever I like, but it fundamentally fails to understand that you are now putting me at risk. You're putting significant numbers of people. And if you do the math on it, if I was an asymptomatic carrier doing whatever I like, I potentially could kill thousands of people just all by myself by the way this virus spreads. So it is a fallacy to say it's just me. It's not just you. Your actions directly affect those around you.
Right. And then he sort of contradicts himself because right after that, he said, you should be allowed to do what you want as long as it doesn't endanger others. So it means that he doesn't have a fundamental knowledge of what this is like. He understands that aspect that you just mentioned, but he's not putting the two things together. So this is a guy who can talk about AI and hydrogen and all this stuff becoming sentient, but like this basic stuff seems to be eluding him. And is that only because it's really super impacting the bottom line of Tesla?
Or his plans to flip us to electric vehicles. It's like he's got a very short timeline. He wants to get us through. He wants to keep the fossil fuel vehicle manufacturers on their heels. And, there's only so much wiggle room in that plan.
I think it shows the power of bias. He has an enormous financial bias and bias towards, he wants to get SpaceX out there, he wants to do Tesla, and this is his whole energy, this is his whole life. And then somebody comes along and says, pause, put it on hold to the point where it could really damage your company and maybe it could go under. So he has this enormous bias to believe that this public health stuff is wrong. And then when you look at who he is reading, who he is quoting, it's all of the people who have gotten this wrong. So he said, this virus will be gone by the end of April. Guess what? It hasn't gone by the end of April because you don't fundamentally understand it. He's quoted and tweeted out these docs, two of them from Bakersfield, who are family practice docs. And their information looked like it was reasonable, but is completely wrong. He keeps saying that this is not much worse than flu. That is completely wrong. When was the last time in a bad flu season, there were thousands of people dying in New York? There were people in the hallways. There were 50 intubated people in the emergency departments there, or in Spain, or in Northern Italy, or in Chile, which is now just, their healthcare system has collapsed from this. That would be never. This is not a little worse than flu. Then JAMA came out today estimating that this is between 5 and 40 times more lethal than flu. So please just look at what happens when it explodes and can destroy your economy anyway. This is not like flu. This is not twice as bad as flu. This is significantly worse. So Elon, get information from people that know what they're talking about. Don't pick the people that just make your argument.
Yeah,
Stop it.
convenient.
But why is it that I keep hearing like some news outlets saying the mortality is so much lower than we thought it was going to be, but then I hear
lower than we
people
thought.
who know that it's still massively high. Like
it's way lower than we thought, but it is still significantly more infectious and more lethal than flu and can completely overwhelm your healthcare system.
It's because when we looked at Italy and Iran, when it first got out of China, those were the two locations that didn't have such a tight lockdown on the truth. China was, we were always skeptical in those first couple of months what was going on in China, but we got to Italy and it looked like a pile of poop. People were dying. The hospitals were so overwhelmed, and they were projecting from that what it was going to be like here, and trying to get a reaction so that we could get prepared, that we could get the supplies. And then now we have the backlash. Oh, it's not that bad. Well, in New York, it was that bad. In New Jersey, it was that bad. It's not that bad in California, but there's so many reasons for that happening. And we are learning day by day. So, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. We need to stay prepared, because I can tell you, in my experience and what I can see, we're going to have more waves, and they could definitely be bigger than what we've already seen, like 3 times bigger. So we are not out of the woods yet. No way.
We haven't even started. In California, the seropositive rate, the number of people who have been infected, is probably way less than 5%. It is very likely, as Robert said, that there is going to be a wave. We're going to have flu, a bad flu season is predicted, and coronavirus in the fall that will be way worse than we just had. So we should be preparing for that, getting PPE. We shouldn't be pretending that this thing has gone away. This thing hasn't even started. It happened in the 1918 pandemic, where Philadelphia said, "Oh, let's have a parade because it's not that bad." And then you fast forward 2 weeks later and the whole place is just dead people in the street. We've got to be very careful here. Chile is another example. So a few weeks ago, Chile was like, go back to the malls. We missed it. Don't know what happened. It's all good. I'm just talking to my friend Pablo this morning, and they are completely overwhelmed with cases. It's like a zombie apocalypse. So this can be true that it's not as bad as we thought, but still absolutely terrible. And where do we see these explosions of cases? In places where there's high density, and we've got to use public transport. And so places like New York, not so bad in California because we're more spread out. Sweden, very spread out. Meatpacking plants. Oh, I don't know. Maybe plants where you build a lot of cars and everybody's right next to each other could be a high risk area. So that's why people like Alameda County and other people are saying, hang on a minute, before you go back to work, shoulder to shoulder, we don't want another meatpacking plant and everybody here getting sick, and those people going into the community and exploding this thing again. So what those public health people were doing was perfectly appropriate. Just like, wait a second, let's make sure we can do this carefully.
But
so
what is
Elon, stop it.
But what does he do? Like, that's the thing. He's in like this weird devil's bargain, and he's actually lost his mind today because he tweeted today, "Take the red pill," which is a Matrix reference.
Yes.
And it's just and who else and Ivanka Trump actually tweeted right back at him, "Already taken." So this is what side, like, this is what is happening over there in Muskville, and it's out of control. And I don't really. It's so like. It's like he asked the question, what can the government make you do and make you not do? But what is it? What are his employees supposed to do, Mel? Like, he opens the factory, 50% of them don't go back to work, which he said was their choice, right? If they don't go, but is he going to fire them?
I don't know what he's going to do. He does have some good arguments.
They did put out a press release that said, or at least it was a note to employees that said that if you have already used up all of your sick time, then you're not going to get paid.
And you might not get unemployment either.
Yeah.
Because we're open.
He did say some good things, and I wish he would focus on this instead of this ridiculous, do whatever you like, the government can't stop it. It's true. If everybody decides they're just going to go out and do things, the government can't stop it. And there will be, millions of people die. But he should be focusing on what he said a few times, but should be the focus, which is, we did this in China. Same thing happened. We retooled the factory. We came up with ways of doing this. We did contact tracing, and the Chinese government and us and Tesla worked together so they were able to reopen. If he would just continue to focus on that, we've done it before. We believe we can do it again safely by doing temperature checks and by having cleaning stations and by doing lots of testing. We can do this carefully. So please just focus on that instead of just this, we can do whatever we like bullshit.
Yeah.
You can do whatever you like, but you put people at danger. Do it the right way. I'm a bit fired up, Tom.
Yeah, no, it sounds like it. And you know, they put out a 38-page booklet on like how they're going to go back to work, which I read through, and it looks like they've done a lot of stuff. But you're hearing from the factory workers, like, it's impossible for us to be 6 feet apart while we're making these cars. It's not possible. So what are they going to do? Are they going to produce cars at a third as fast? And are they willing to do that to keep people 6 feet apart? What is it that they're really going to do in practice? Do they have the millions of masks, you know, available that they're going to need? Because you can't wear those masks all the time. And what masks are they going to wear? Just plain old face masks that don't have particulate, you know, like they're not N95s, because you still can't get N95s because the second and third and fourth waves are going to need those N95s when those come. It's like we're in this weird devil's bargain where, and then he makes other points where some people have to go back to work. Right? Like there isn't a giant cornucopia of goods that we just draw from. People have to make food. People have to make things. I don't know that people have to make cars. We're not using them. We're not selling them. We're not buying them. I don't know where the balance is, but it doesn't feel like he's anywhere near it at the moment.
Right. And everything he says about that is true, but you have to, this is what, it's a pandemic, and we, the country, still haven't realized, like, this is like a world war. We should be retooling entire factories because every one of those factory workers should have PPE and they should have N95 masks. And there's not enough N95 masks. Well, we should be building more N95 masks. There's going to be another way. All of those meat packers. We need to take this seriously. We're not taking it seriously. We think that magically this has now gone away. This hasn't gone away, and this is not going away for at least a year. And we should be taking this like we're at war right now, and we need equipment. We don't need guns. We need PPE so that people, even factory workers, need PPE.
Right. Yeah. But why do we not? What is it about us that we just don't get that?
Because the leaders are idiots. And they want to pretend, because they don't fundamentally understand that nothing has changed from 2 months ago. And in fact, it could be worse.
Tom, are you talking about we Americans or we humans?
Any place that's reopening, right? Mel mentioned Chile reopened, right? We humans is what I'm really saying, is like, what is it about us that we're just like, it's been 2 months, we've been hiding in our homes, and now we're like, let's go outside and deal with it. I'm guilty of it, right? Like I've done, you know, things in the last couple of weeks where I was out, you know, typically I'm out wearing a mask. When I'm out, I'm wearing a mask, I'm washing my hands, I'm doing all of those precautions. But like me and Mel played golf. We were not wearing masks. There were times we were less than 6 feet apart, not very often, because I don't hit the ball very straight. But still, like, it's like, it's just part of, and again, I'm trying to put myself out there as well. Like, it's part of our mental psyche to sort of be like, oh, the worst has kind of passed, but it really hasn't. And we just, well,
let me speak to that, because you can go outside. In fact, going outside is good. The UV light, the air, the infectivity outside is significantly less than inside. So you should open up the parks, you should open up the beaches, but you should say to people, don't gather in big clumps. You can go play golf. It's actually one of the great things about golf is there's lots of distancing. So we should be focusing on the public health people getting this information, not the politicians who just want to pretend that they can bring the economy back without causing another explosion. So you can do some of these things. You should go outside. You should walk. When you go to a store, put on the mask to reduce, if you're an asymptomatic carrier, spreading it to other people. It's not going to stop you getting it if somebody coughs on you. But going outside and getting exercise, these are good things. So, but that messaging has got to be very clear. It's got to be very consistent. It's got to be by public health people, not by politicians who say just liberate. What the hell is that? Liberate, but slowly and carefully it should be.
or industrialists who pick and choose their data as they want.
Right. But we would also pick and choose our data. Like we would prefer that people not go back to fracking because, oh, that's bad. Right. Like there are things that are impacting this. But let's move on to the next article in here. And I'm going to skip over the coronavirus wrecked Tesla's momentum because I think we've covered that in general. We can go back to it next time if you want, Robert. But Tesla Gigafactory Berlin prepares for Model Y factory build out with the first pile driver on the site. Please, Robert, extrapolate.
Yeah, so this fellow at Gigafactory_4 on Twitter provides a long video from a drone that shows this huge area of cleared forest. It's just this tan patch in what looks like an endless sea of trees. And on it, they've already constructed a few roads. You could kind of see, I think, where the layout of the factory will be. And this pile driver has been driving around and driving down, to me, what look like big PVC pipes. So I don't know that it's like driving the piles that will support the actual structure of the factory, but it looks like PVC piping because I kind of got up close and looked, and a couple of people noted in this article, which comes from Teslarati, that they were testing groundwater and the effects of the factory on the groundwater because they still have yet to meet with local people who have, these are like residents of that region, who are supposed to have a public hearing in which they talk about their concerns or their reservations about the presence of this factory. And
but they already got rid of the forest. That seems like they may be doing some of this a little backwards in some ways, like the trees are gone and now they're going to talk about whether or not it's a good idea.
Right. Well, they've gotten rid of the trees. They did also get rid of a bunch of ordnance, right? The bombs that had fallen and not exploded.
So did they find more than that first one?
I think they found a 4 or 5. I think I remember that. My memory isn't.
We're going to need those. We're going to want those back. Those are ours. That's our property.
Those are ours.
I'm showing a picture of this pile driver right now. There's
you can see the piles of white pipes there. Maybe, you know, Tesla will put that in the Tesla museum on the factory site. So as you do your tour, you'll get to see the bits of deactivated bombs that were laying in the forest there. But they've taken and cleared this forest. It's a ginormous area. It looks to be at least as big as the Gigafactory in Sparks, Nevada. They're going to build only Model Y there, according to this article. And
initially, it says initially.
Yeah. Well, who knows what comes after Y? Truck.
That means no threes in Europe. I would be very shocked if they didn't make threes here as well.
Yeah, I agree. Unless, of course, they change the 3 significantly and just drop it on the Y. In other words, they make an interchangeable 3Y chassis because the Y sounds like it's a lot cheaper to build. It's a lot lighter. It's a lot more fuel efficient, electrical fuel efficient. But one thing in the article that caught my attention was that the local government had said, yes, we're giving Tesla an extension for holding this community, session where people can air their concerns, but they're letting Tesla continue on driving piles and doing what needs to be to keep the construction of the factory on track, which kind of smacks of a bit of, I don't know, it's fixed. But of course, they're noting that
it's fixed because they're not going to spend $2 billion on this factory or whatever godforsaken amount of money they're going to spend on this thing. And then they're going to build this factory and the people are going to be like, no, it's going to impact the water. So we want you to just, I don't know, they're going to turn it into what after that? A sports facility? It's ridiculous.
Because it's going to employ like 12,000 people. It's going to produce 500,000 zero emission vehicles. Every one of the robots that's going to populate this factory, I don't know, 5,000 robots are going to be built by a German company that Tesla owns. But I mean, like the amount of money that is going to benefit Germany, both the federal government, the local governments, various region governments is huge. And I think that the factory is a foregone conclusion, although the people who make their concerns known might get some concessions. Like
You think
Tesla
the factory's a foregone conclusion. This is why people hate corporations and governments. This exact situation that we're looking at in this photograph. The public meetings will be happening in a few months. However, we're going to allow them to continue to, like, are you kidding me? This is the most ridiculous thing I think I've almost ever seen. And I've seen some very ridiculous things in the years of doing the show with you gentlemen.
Could you put those trees back? We've decided we don't want it.
Yeah, like did they take each one of those trees and put them in a little pot, and they're just like next to the factory somewhere,
waiting to go?
Come on now, that is amazing. Like, can you imagine the uproar if they did this here? Like, just pick any area of this country that has some forests,
Texas.
and we were just like. Texas, and they're just like,
I think Texas, it'll go down pretty quickly.
Yeah.
I don't think Texas has an environmental review for things, do they?
Nigel Weir is saying that forest was for toilet paper.
Oh, that's why we're having a shortage. It was terrible timing.
Damn.
Although you would think if it was for toilet paper, all those trees could have been turned into toilet paper, so we should have a lot of excess toilet paper just based on.
Maybe we will.
It's so confusing. I'm confuzzled.
Don't know what's happening right now.
Yeah, I expect that the Tesla Texas Gigafactory is probably going to be large enough to produce everything.
Is this next Gigafactory going to be the Pentafactory? The Terafactory? The Terafactory?
Terafactory.
Where they make all of the batteries in the world?
No, but they'll probably make all of the semis, the cyber trucks, the 3, the Y, and whatever is next.
Oh, Nigel said, by the way, that wasn't a joke. That was an unnatural forest that has trees for toilet paper.
I mean, that's true. Like, I get it. Like, we have all kinds, like you go to the Pacific Northwest and we have all of those. Like, there's no old growth forest left up there. It's just all mostly forest that they've cut down and they turn into paper products, which I get. So it's fine. But still, like, if there's groundwater issues, it's problematic. Joel Sapp said that, like, the same thing happened to Audi and they bailed on it, and Audi had all the approvals. So it's super interesting to just imagine it. And again, I hope they do build these this factory, but it's just a weird way to go about it. And again, it's why people just have a distrust of capitalism in a nutshell, right? It's like, no, we're going to go through all the proper processes while we're tearing down and polluting your groundwater. It's going to be fine. It's the beautiful thing about it. It's how this country has 14,000 Superfund sites or something like that. You know, we had rivers on fire and all kinds of other things because of crap like this going on.
Love canal.
Anyways, what's next, Robert?
What's next is batteries.
Yes, I'm excited about this.
This is very exciting. I don't know when we're going to see the battery investor day. I've heard that it's going to be in the early half of June.
Somewhere between 5 and 10 years. Elon has taken on the whole, like, it may happen at this point somewhere, sometime. It's going to be real. It's going to be huge. It's going to be exciting. It's going to be a great day for batteries.
So this is a picture of the article by Simon Alvarez at Teslarati. What first thing that struck me was, why is there still a huge notch out of the side of the Gigafactory? And why the hell are there only solar panels at one corner of the Gigafactory?
Thank you.
Yeah.
This is like, it's always 30% built. And where are the solar, where's the solar cells? Where is the windmills? Where's all this stuff? We hear all this stuff from years ago, and it's no follow-up. And nobody asks, like, on investor day or anything. It's like, why haven't you built out the factory? Well, what's the explanation for that? Why haven't you built out the is this really 100% renewable factory? Because it doesn't look like it right now. So poke the bear a little bit. Like, what's going on there? What's going on?
Do you think they just can't get enough people to work there?
I don't know.
I think they ran into those kind of like infrastructure issues. I would love to know the answer.
I think the answer is that it's being run by the same people that are doing full self-driving. Oh, that hurts. Oh, that it is interesting.
Well,
It's
if that's the
frustrating
case,
to
shouldn't
not
you
know.
send them like $15,000 or $16,000, Mel, so they could
That's right.
finish building out the factory?
That's right. Let me help you out here.
I don't, I think that, there may be some of this Elon effect where Elon imagined there was going to be like a hyperloop that was going to take people up and back from the factory. Right now, I don't know how it is compared to when I drove out there, like whatever it was, 5 years ago. There was literally one road, and it had, like, in many places, one lane in each direction. And to imagine thousands of people going back and forth from Reno to Sparks to it just, there's a big highway, but you have to get off the highway and you have to traverse this small road for, like, I don't know what it was, 12 miles to get to the factory. That's a nightmare, a traffic nightmare. So I don't know, maybe they need, the same kind of a loop system that's going into Nevada in Las Vegas. And if they got it already approved in Las Vegas, then maybe that's going to help to fast track something like that to Gigafactory.
Yeah.
But
maybe the question is that there could be a lot of things involved, right? This is mostly for Panasonic, right? Like, this is mostly a Panasonic battery factory, and Panasonic's been having some issues. And maybe Panasonic, maybe the reason they haven't built it out is because Panasonic sort of is like, we're not going to put more lines in there. And so they're trying to figure out their deal with the other battery company that they bought.
Right. And we'll have a story on that too. I put in a little late, but this story is about the zero cobalt battery that Tesla has been working with CATL, which is this Chinese battery company. They're kind of an up and coming battery company. They've been kind of on the small side, but now I think are really starting to take off as far as how sophisticated. And maybe this is because of their working with Tesla, but they've created a non-cobalt battery that uses, I think it's iron phosphate. And it is potentially this million-mile battery that Tesla has been striving for. And it could push the cost of the battery to under $100 per kilowatt hour, like complete. I mean,
because there's no cobalt?
Because there's no cobalt, and because of its efficiency, its level of components that are required. I think it's a simpler battery to make. And they're talking about it also being more easily recycled, which could lower the cost as well, because when you take back an old Tesla, or you take back an old battery farm from a electric utility, then you can use those batteries for a quick and easy infusion of materials, raw materials, instead of having to mine it and buy it from a mine and transport it, etc. So they're talking about battery costs below $100 per kilowatt hour complete, and maybe dropping with recycling down to 80. And with those numbers, making a Tesla all-electric vehicle as inexpensive as any petrol or gasoline powered car.
I think that's why Elon has kept saying, like, he thinks that what they're about to announce on Battery Day is the most important thing they've ever done. And I think it's the Terafactory. I think it's the cobalt free. I think it's the huge increase in production that they hope to get from the various factories to bring it to underneath that 100, because that 100 has been quoted by everybody as that, as you've said, Robert, that's the number where you can build a car, cheaper electric car than you can a gas car. That is a big deal. The next big step, I don't think they're going to get there yet. The next big number is $20 per kilowatt hour. At $20 per kilowatt hour, you get rid of every other type of energy. You can just make solar panels and with battery backup cheaper than any other form of energy at $20 per kilowatt hour. That's a little further off.
That's when we need 100 gigafactories.
Right, but again, like, so we say that, right? He talks about the 100 gigafactories, and then we talk about potentially them putting a gigafactory in Texas or Oklahoma, right? A second Terafactory, I guess you want to call it. But the interesting thing about that is why, I mean, that is to build cars closer to the East Coast is what he claims. However, if they have this space in Nevada that's not fully functioning in the size that it would, and Nigel in the chat says that they managed to get more than 2 floors in the Gigafactory, so it is maybe the same amount of square footage that they originally thought it would be anyway. So there could be some other limitations that we're just not aware of, and hopefully people will be able to ask those questions at Battery Day about the size of Gigafactory, because really Gigafactory Nevada is, for all intents and purposes, a battery factory, right? That's what it's making. It doesn't really do anything else. And so maybe it has gotten to the point where they've made it efficient. They've doubled the amount of floors in it, and it is as big as the footprint can be, or they're having issues like with traffic or with getting other people to work in it. And those were likely issues they wouldn't have in Texas, because they can build rail spurs, or they could put roads, and there's more people in that part of Texas. Obviously, if it's in Austin, there's a lot of folks in Austin. So it does make sense, but it does beg the question about, like, finish one project before you go on to another project potentially. I understand the Berlin, and I understand the China, to serve those markets, to stop the shipping, to do those things. But like Texas and Nevada are not super far from each other in some ways. So like, does it make sense to do that?
Well, is it got anything to do with the fact that like they've got this deal with Panasonic, and maybe there's something in the contract that says you can't build Tesla branded batteries in this factory because we gave you billions of dollars to build this factory, but they can do it in Texas? Is it something that's more sort of legalistic? Contractual?
Yeah,
True,
I mean, I think that's possible. There's definitely a lot of unknowns about the battery situation, and there's a very lively chat going on about that stuff. And so, you know, he could be saying, you know, could have not wanted to build out the capacity because he did see his roadmap to better batteries, and so they're just kind of slowing their roll and making what they need. But the other thing that he talks about so often is that all they need to do is make more batteries, and they can make more cars. They can't make the Semi because they can't make enough batteries. They can't make the Y because they can't make enough battery. It's like everything is about making batteries, and yet they're not doing everything they can to make batteries in that one place that they built to make batteries. It seems like a weird circle that they're in.
But that's actually, that is a good explanation. Is like Panasonic has a formulation and a battery. Mm-hmm. And they have now, through their friend who's a Canadian, what's his name, Darwin, have come up with a much better, higher density, less expensive cobalt-free version. Mm-hmm. We don't want to max capacity out because we just got a better one, and we need to go buid it somewhere else. Sorry, we'll build just enough to get things going.
But in the interim, if batteries are keeping you from delivering power walls, power packs, super power packs, all these other things that is really part of your mission, like, don't you want to make as much as you can while you can? Like, well, let's say what you have.
Well, let's say I can put $2 billion into ramping up 2170s the way they are right now and really get this cranking, or I can put $2 billion into a brand new factory, into a brand new place with some tax deductions, and I'll be able to make even better batteries, better, faster. Then I would be on the board saying, just this, the rate you're doing is fine right now. Let's get the new factory going.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Just thinking.
I mean, they definitely are like building the car while it's on the freeway. So they are making adjustments and changes. And much of the time, depending on what Elon's tweet habit is at that time, much of the time, I feel good about how they're running things. They are moving the ball. We are advancing, certainly faster than General Motors or Fiat or any GM, VW, anybody else who could be making electric vehicles. You know, Tesla's doing better than all of them. It's not going as fast as any of us want. Yeah. We want 10,000 semis on the road already. But what can we do? And unfortunately, I wish that Tesla was a better communicator. We have only been saying that for the last 5 years.
Yeah.
I wish they would communicate better. I wish they would let us know what's going on. But why do they? Why would they? Why should they? Maybe it's going to jack their advantage, their plans. Somebody's going to jump on something before they can get it settled. I don't know enough to be able to say that. So,
right.
But one thing in this article that I thought was interesting was a mention of this company called Redwood Materials. And it turns out that Redwood Materials is a company that is integral to the recycling of the batteries. And guess who runs Redwood Materials?
His cousin.
No, JB Straubel.
Oh, that's right, JB.
Yeah. JB left Tesla, magically now is running this company, Redwood Materials, and they're the ones who are going to help knock 20% off the cost of this $100 per kilowatt battery. And I think that's pretty sweet. I love to see that JB's back involved.
Yeah, that may have been very strategic from the beginning. I kind of need to do my own thing. I want to run my own little company. Okay, do this and we'll make you a trillionaire. And here I'm just showing a picture right now of JB. The idea of battery recycling is really key. How you do that, capture all of these metals, even if it's not cobalt, and put them back together in a sustainable way, makes me very excited. And they've even started talking about reusing batteries out of cars for storage, which, you know, JB talked about at the beginning. It's different chemistry, but if it's already been used in a car and you don't need to put it under the same stress, stick it in battery storage. So maybe that's part of what they'll be doing as well, not completely taking that cell apart, but just repackaging it for your Powerwall.
And
Well,
maybe
the cars have like 1 million miles. They can last forever and ever and ever. So like those batteries are never getting taken out of circulation.
Well, they will if you total your car, or, you know, something happens that
Did your batteries get taken out of circulation, Robert, when your car was
No,
totaled?
actually, they went back into circulation. EV West is a company down in San Diego, and they grabbed out the batteries and a bunch of parts for the car that had to do with electrical and motor.
But
and
they're
such.
not getting recycled. That's my point, right? They're getting reused. Your car was totaled.
That's
They're
even
not
better.
recycling the batteries. They're getting reused. And which is
Reuse
great.
is good.
Yeah. So that was exciting. And this is like why I like hanging out in this Teslaverse, is that stories kind of meld and come together.
Yeah.
And we learn like, oh, wow, yeah, now I see why that happened. And so again, I'm glad things are moving forward, and it does give me a good feeling.
The 1 million mile battery has huge implications for the robo network and profitability, and you're able to just run these cars for 10 years. And so the theoretic 1 million mile battery goes with the 1 million mile electric motor, produces ride shares and stuff that are incredibly cheap. So I'm excited about Battery Day.
But one of the issues with the batteries, and I don't know if the 1 million mile batteries, is like as your car ages. I spoke to a gentleman from Arizona over the weekend who had 160,000 miles on his 2014 S, I believe he said. But he said that his range is still okay, but that the charge rate at a supercharger is really low. Like it's been really, really impacted. So I think, you know, that 1 million mile battery is important because durability is obviously a big deal. And then, you know, with no cobalt and 1 million miles and being cheaper. But if, you know, 100,000 miles into that 1 million miles, it takes twice as long to charge it. That's potentially problematic, although longer range overall fixes some of that stuff. But I don't know, thoughts on that aspect of it?
Well, I'm hoping that again at Battery Day, we're going to hear about that, because that to extend the range of the batteries, they have said that over time you might want to supercharge less often with less energy through there. So because it produces crystals on the anode and shit that I don't understand. So that's what, again, there's this genius Canadian dude that's working on this chemistry, and that's part of the 1 million mile battery, that you can fix some of that stuff. So I'll assume that you can also continue to supercharge at fast rates. That would be big, huge.
Sounds like this new battery, sounds like this new cobalt-free battery is going to be turned out into Chinese Model 3s later this year. So this is like happening now.
I wonder what's in the, it's just probably the standard 2170s in the Model Ys that's coming off the line right now. But they did say that the tech goes into the Chinese cars first, and then we'll see, because they have to build their Texas factory for us, the Penta factory. But
have we heard back from Tesla in terms of whether or not we're invited to Battery Day yet, Robert? I know
we've heard. No,
we're not invited.
No, but it's probably going to be virtual. So, you know, it kind of opens up the floodgates. That why couldn't they let more, you know, less important or less popular people in, like us?
Do you think what we've just said about the way Elon is thinking about the COVID-19 situation is going to endear us to them at all?
Never.
Well, but some of them may actually be thinking the same thing, to be honest with you. Like in the marketing teams, like, yeah, I don't know if I'm ready to go back to the factory. I can do marketing from my living room. This is fine. So then we may actually have endeared ourselves to some Tesla employees. Not like Elon's handing out press passes. He's not like got a master checklist in front of him, like talking Tesla. Those guys talk some shit about me. Don't like those guys.
Melt.
How about a supercharger update? I've got a supercharger update before you begin.
Give it to us.
They opened the supercharger in Goleta 12 stalls,
Well,
250 kilowatts, May 6th. Saw that and went, what?
250?
250 kilowatt, the V3, 12 stalls. Very excited.
Did you charge at it?
No, because we've got to stay at home. But if I were to leave home, I would go to Goleta.
But you can drive.
But you can?
Yeah.
You said you can go outside.
No, I
Make
haven't
up
had a
your
reason to
mind.
supercharge there.
Make up your mind. I've been, I don't drive very often. If I do, I'll just drive and drive back basically, or go to the store. But I've been supercharging in Thousand Oaks, which are now, that was a very full supercharger. Now almost never more than half full.
Right.
A lot of folks around there. What I will tell you, if you're going to a supercharger anywhere, use some freaking hand sanitizer when you're done plugging the cable in and out of your car. I see people getting out of their cars wearing masks, some not wearing masks, plugging their cars in, getting right back in their car. Dude, what are you? You're touching the thing. Wash
Filthy.
your goddamn hand.
It's
Humans
filthy.
are touching them.
It's called a foamite.
The
Yeah.
hell is wrong with people?
And
Anyway,
part of the-
supercharger up.
Part of the reason you don't want to drive a lot is because if you drive a lot, you get in a car accident. If you get a car accident, you got to go see Rob. Then he's got to put his PPE on because he doesn't know if you're covered in COVID. So if you don't need to drive, don't drive.
Yeah, but there's so
Car
many
accidents are way down.
But there's so many
Supercharging.
out of work doctors, Mel. I mean, they're furloughing half the planet.
But you
There
know,
is
let
a
me-
there is a map of supercharging before you go into the open ones, and it goes whoop. So everybody is staying at home, even the Tesla owners, which is good for now.
All right, Robert.
Tom, when you went to the supercharger in Thousand Oaks, I was there maybe last week, and I'm sitting there 20 minutes. I thought, I'm going to take a walk. This is the one that's right near the movie theater. And so if you walk around behind the movie theater, this shopping plaza abuts this beautiful park with a stream,
What?
full of birds. It was such a pleasant distraction to walk around the backside of this, shopping plaza. I strongly recommend that next time.
Is it on Westlake Boulevard? That one there?
Yeah, it's the first one. The one
Yeah.
where there's
Thousand
like
Oaks.
there's some other things. I will tell you the other thing, and I have not done this every time, but you can order Shake Shack online and you can pick it up and you can take it home to your kids because they love Shake Shack. But that's
Yeah.
probably why I didn't find the nature preserve, because I was having a strawberry milkshake.
Well, you know what? If you walk around the backside of the movie theater up along the creek and such, it'll take you
Yeah.
right up to Shake Shack.
Nice. Yeah, it's a beautiful area out there, and it's and even more beautiful these days because it's always clear. I mean, the sky is always blue. It's amazing.
Yesterday, I was up on the top of the hill here and I could see New York. It was amazing.
Amazing.
Wow, that is
Very clear.
That is really next level lack of curvature of the earth.
Well, Mel's a flat earther.
Yeah.
No, let's not bring that into this show. That would be ridiculous.
So there have not been a lot of new superchargers. On the supercharger list, we only have a total of 8 entries. There's 4 new open superchargers, most of them in California, or I should say the United States. We have Gilman, Illinois, Goleta, as Mel just mentioned, Manteca, which is here in California. There's White Hills in Arizona, and the Nürburgring was on the list as being open, but it turns out that's a false positive because it had been closed. This is the 2 stalls, a standard supercharger, and this is that racetrack that everybody uses to try and make clock their cars, how well they do on a open road sort of test.
Mm.
And so the Nürburgring is back open after being closed for 1 day. I don't know how that got into the report. 2 are being constructed right now, both in Wolverhampton, UK, one on the north side of the highway, one on the south side of the highway.
Home of the
Oh my-
Wolverhampton Wolves,
Yeah.
the soccer leagues. Yeah, love
Yeah,
them.
are they good?
Yeah, they are. They're good.
Excellent. And then we have 2 permitted superchargers, and that is in Iceland and in Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
Okay, I'm going to ask this question. It's been a couple years now. Any status on the Calabasas Supercharger? Like, what is going on in Calabasas? I need to
No,
drive back
evidently,
there and see if they picked up that gear. Because
yeah,
if
no,
not, I'm
all the
going to.
gear's gone. All the
Oh,
gear
it
is
is.
gone.
Okay.
So I think that there's been a falling out between the Carusos, who are supposed to drop like superchargers here in the Pacific Palisades as well.
Okay.
Not. So not a whole lot on the supercharger front, but with the pandemic and physical distancing and such, although there's plenty of construction going on in my area, I don't know why there's not more going on. I do have a lead to one of the guys who's in charge at Tesla for superchargers. So I'm going to kind of tap on his door and ask for some other updates. So shout out to anybody who's listening to the show now. I think there's like 5 people listening to the show. Actually, no, I see 44. But anybody who listens to the show in the next week, send me a tweet or send the show. I don't know, if you send an email to the show, who knows how that's going to get to me.
I'm having a hard time keeping up with those.
So just tweet to me at RROSENBL. That's my Twitter handle. And let me know what your questions are. Maybe you have a supercharger issue in your area, question, when's it going to happen? I think this should be one that they build out. And I'm going to get in touch with this fellow who I've had a couple of meetings with and see if I can't liaison.
Well, maybe he can get us invited to Battery Day. You can't have batteries without superchargers, Robert. Make the inquiry.
Yes.
Let's do some SpaceX. Let's chat
SpaceX. There were 2 launches in the Cape supposedly this week, but only one of them happened.
Yeah, one of them's delayed till Tuesday.
Yeah, we have a launch coming up. I put it here in the show notes, Tuesday at 12:15 a.m. Yep. That's California time. So it'll be 3:15 on the East Coast. That's going to be a Starlink launch. And I think, Tom, you're going to tell us a little more about that.
Yeah, so it's a Starlink launch. And on top of the constellation of 60 new Starlinks, this company called Planet is going to be putting in some hitchhikers. 6 Planet satellites will hitch rides when this SpaceX Starlink launches. And the reason it didn't launch is because there are some range issues, and you can't have two rockets launching at the same time in this range in Florida. And the governmental Space Force launch, which is what the ULA thing was a Space Force launch, took priority. And so they were both delayed, and the Space Force went today. And because of that, SpaceX had to push to Monday, and then because of weather, that's why they pushed to Tuesday. So that's sort of the long story on that particular one. But they're going to launch 3 of these SkySats, 6 total, but 3 of them are going to go up on this Starlink, which is going to bring the Starlinks up to, I believe, 480, which is a pretty good amount. And then another 60 in June, which 540, that math super easy to do. It's not anywhere near an order of magnitude, so I actually do understand it. But like these Planet SkySats, they have some little tiny, they're the ones that also own the CubeSats, the little Dove CubeSats, and they are the size of a shoebox, and they have a bunch of those, but these ones are about 220 pounds. And they have some amazing cameras. They're the ones who spotted the failed Iranian missile launch. They had some great, very high intensity photos in this article from that particular
They didn't publish it in the article, but I guess they had some images of you, Tom, sunbathing on your back porch.
That would be, they wouldn't actually be able to see that because it would be very blinding to the cameras. They couldn't adjust the ASAs down low enough to actually be like, it'd be like trying to take a picture of a white piece of paper, an ultra white piece of paper from the satellite. But that's funny. But the Space Force launch was kind of cool, and that went up. That was the secretive X-37B space plane, which Elon, oddly enough, did not name his child after that space plane. But maybe someday on Mars he'll name it after that space plane on an Atlas V rocket, which that's pretty cool. Yeah, still using the old Atlas V. They were not planning on landing it, but SpaceX is planning on landing its rocket on the, of course, I Still Love You. And this will be the 3rd mission for this particular rocket. So that's got to be saving Elon a fair amount of cash to get his internet system up.
Oh yeah, that's kick-ass. Talk about reuse.
Yeah.
Again, really great. So it's not all bad in the Elon verse.
No, I mean, honestly, like, it's beyond not all that bad, right? The problem is, and we've talked about this many times, he does so many amazing things. It makes the crappy stuff kind of stand out as like, why? Why are just do the good stuff, Elon? But you have to take, like they say, the good with the bad. A spoonful of SpaceX sugar helps the crazy COVID medicine go down, as it were, as it pertains to Elon.
As they say, it's a short walk from genius to madness. And he walks between those two quite a lot.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
I feel like you have some understanding of that as well, Mr.
Oh,
at times, walking between genius and madness. Let's talk about Hyperloop a little, and we don't have to talk about this first one. They are planning, we'll mention a little bit, they're sort of in the early stages of potentially a Cleveland to Chicago route with Hyperloop. They're having some issues with that. Both Virgin Technologies is still working on stuff, as is Hyperloop Technologies. But Robert found an article of actually some good news as it pertains to the Boring Company. Although it's not Hyperloop related, it is Las Vegas related.
Yeah, I don't know if you can see me. I'm having internet connection issues. Are you good?
Slowed down considerably, that's for sure.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on.
unstable internet.
Well, if you can, unstable. Ooh. So in Las Vegas, there's a Twitter video that came out that showed a kind of like a interesting pit. And then all of a sudden the wall's rumbling and pieces are falling. And then the Boring Company rotating drill comes through. And that's the second of the two Boring Company tunnels that they're building under the Las Vegas Convention Center. And now both tunnels are complete. The first one was completed in January. Now this one is completed here in March, even with physical distancing. And we're on the way to having Teslas initially with a safety driver speeding up and back through the convention center. I don't know when the convention center is going to return to being a convention center, but at the moment, we're still working along those lines. I think the contract was already paid for. And what's interesting about this article is that there is a further sort of like raising the bet on this round of poker that Tesla is actively proposing to the city of Nevada to lengthen this tunnel complex. We had sort of talked about it in the first place, but that was before they had actually started drilling. Now they've shown their ability and their prowess in creating an underground tunnel. They want to continue the tunnel all the way up the strip to the airport, McLaren Airport. And the article even talks about them increasing the tunnel, which would probably be a different type of tunnel, right? We're talking Boring Company tunnel versus Hyperloop tunnel, but to create a Hyperloop tunnel from Las Vegas to Los Angeles. And OMG, what a boon that would be. You know, with the speed of the Hyperloop, that's like a 20-minute trip or a 18-minute trip to go at 600 miles an hour. And again, this is all pie in the sky right now, but still, the concept that they've gotten one step towards a, I don't know, 40-step plan is pretty impressive. And it's exciting to see.
I could get to Vegas in 20 minutes and I'm not going.
I could eat my weight in crab claws just for lunch at a buffet and be back in time for dinner.
Yeah, I've been wanting to try that icy vodka bar because I'm always running hot. And you know, sitting with a fur coat on, drinking vodka with blocks of ice around me sounds really kind of exciting.
Sounds super environmentally friendly to build an ice vodka bar in the middle of Las Vegas also.
Well, what if it's solar powered?
Gonna throw that. Oh, well then that's fine.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah.
So they've finished the tunnels, but they're going to build the up on the top of the ground bits so that you can get down into the tunnel. And they're supposed to finish it by the end of the year, right? Wasn't that the contract to have it all done by the end of this year?
Yeah, just the section under the convention center.
Just a convention center, yeah. And so they can open it up and nobody's going to be there, because when you look at the images of Vegas and the Strip, there's nobody there.
Yeah, but it's interesting, like, why cars and not just people movers underground? Just because of the speed? That just, it seems very inefficient.
It's been, well, there's been a lot of discussion about that, because Elon tweeted out years ago, public transport sucks. You do not want to be on public transport with other people, and you just want to be in your own little, you know,
Pod.
car, which at the time was like, that's very inefficient. You need to put lots of people. Right now, it sounded like prescient. He's a genius again. I really don't want to get on that with everybody else. I want to be in my own pod.
Yeah. Like, are you calling Ubers these days? Yeah.
I thought it was really exciting because it's a great sales tool for Tesla. And what if in the short term, it's at the end of the tunnel, the Tesla can actually just drive out of the tunnel and take you directly to the airport. When it's autonomous, if they get that kind of approval, maybe they could have that sort of a linkage with the rest of Las Vegas until the rest of the tunnel system is created. So I think there's a usability issue here that might be something we didn't really think of, or not something they've told us about, but something that's in the back kind of brewing.
I'm sure the taxi drivers will love that.
Well, the taxi drivers hate everything because Uber and Lyft have screwed them.
Yeah.
We'll see. I mean, like, then they're all going to hate Tesla when it's all autonomous, because there are going to be no drivers.
Right.
Yeah. Well, it's going to be a really interesting proof of concept. And that's really all this first one is. Proof of concept. Can you do it? What's the most efficient way to do it? Whatever. But we'll see.
We almost got to ride in a Boring Company tunnel in some Teslas once. That almost happened for us.
But we got down to the tunnel, at least that much.
We did. That's true. Mel, you got some media picks, my friend?
Let me just say,
this-
I just want to step right back 1 second, that there's going to be another launch this week.
What?
Yeah. So SpaceX looks to be targeting May 18th for the Starship 4th version.
Tomorrow?
The Starship Hop?
The Starship Hop. This is from at Next Spaceflight on Twitter, Michael Baylor. He went scanning through Texas airspace log. It looks like it's something that comes off of a teletype. And it says here, SFC 1600 foot to prove a safe environment for space launch and re-entry operations pursuant to 14 CFR section, blah, blah, blah. SpaceX are authorized in the airspace. So it even gives a phone number for SpaceX in this. I put it in the show notes. I was thinking of, hello, do you have King Prince Albert in a can? Let him out. Yeah, Anyway, I'm not going to say the phone number because I don't want to get us on anybody's greater SHIT list. But that's pretty exciting that tomorrow they might hop the the Starship. So you can watch like Boca Chica Girl on Twitter and Spaceflight Now. These are two people who are down there. They set up these cameras and they show some pretty cool stuff. So does Tim Dodd, Everyday Astronaut.
Everyday Astronaut.
I don't think he's going to be in Texas because he's right now in Florida. But this is really exciting. This is the kind of stuff that just makes me, tingle.
Tingly in the bits. Before we go into media picks, Adam A has said, hey, Mel, any thoughts on the ridiculous state of EV pricing and options in Australia? Cheapest Model 3 is $85,000 plus. I want an EV, but they're just so unattainable here. Yeah, well, cars in general in Australia are ridiculously expensive, like about twice as expensive as here on average. But Teslas are particularly expensive. I'm sorry. You've got nationalized healthcare, though. You've got that.
Is that due to the transportation, the fact that none of the cars are made in Australia? Is that the main reason?
They don't make cars in Australia anymore, and so at that level, it's considered a luxury car, so there's extra taxes. So Australia is not a good place to buy a car. It's very expensive.
But why in a country that's so progressive in terms of its renewable infrastructure not reducing its VATs or whatever taxes they have for cars like that? That seems like something that the people of Australia really should push back on. And I don't know, are they adding double 30% to the cost of the car? Like, is
Yeah,
this
at
just a
least.
governmental situation?
Yeah, it's always been like that. I don't know the forces at play there, but Australia is actually not progressive when it comes to energy. Australia has a lot of coal, sells a lot of coal. Their right-wing government right now is, anti, their climate deniers. So there's a lot of poopy going down in Australia as well.
Right.
It is not the country of my youth.
You guys want to talk about this other, I don't know who put in the Hyperloop article from
Nah.
the Post Gazette? No?
I
Nah,
put
let's
in the
just,
Hyperloop article. Now we can cover that next time.
we've
There's
been going
information.
long enough.
Yeah, we've
All
been
right.
talking for a while.
My media pick is occurring in about an hour and a half, and it is the
Yes.
final two in the series of The Last Dance, which has been the greatest television series in the history of the world. I don't care what you say.
It's good. I don't know if it's the greatest in the history of the world.
Okay, I might be overstating it slightly.
Been some good shows, and again, it is a wonderful.
I'm going to get something. I'll be right back.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, so it's at 6, and I know that Robert has got a Zoom party where he's watching it with some friends, not Tom and Mel.
Well, we were not invited to the Rob Zoom party. Look at that lovely orchid he's got in the background. I had an orchid.
Oh, he's got his basketball.
He's got a
He
hoop.
can palm a basketball. That's impressive.
He's a big man.
He's got big hands.
This is
You
what's
can't-
been giving me great joy, watching that show
You can't
and
hear
being
us.
able to, I got a basketball and now
Mhm.
I can palm the basketball.
Look at you.
I've never been able to do that, but now I've watched that show for what, 8 hours?
Mhm.
And while I'm watching it, I'm just doing this, going back and forth, practicing, doing all this stuff. And now I can palm a basketball. Now I have to go figure out how to shoot the
You
basketball.
you taught yourself how to palm a basketball since.
Yeah, you know what I realized is it's
No.
just a matter of how far you can stretch these two fingers. The other fingers help, but these two fingers, and then making your hand really flat when you're stretching them. Yeah. So you can get as much circumference around the ball. And then just kind of working on a little bit of this, like this little bend in the fingers. And with that, I can grab the ball.
And now, like you say, you have to learn to dribble. You have to learn to shoot. You have to.
I need to have like how to put my shoulder into other guys.
You got to
I'm
get
not
the
into
fade
that.
away. You got a lot to do, bro.
Yeah, it's twist and dunk.
Pretty impressive.
It's so exciting. So
I always
love it.
wanted to be able to palm a basketball because Jordan used to do that move where he like shove it in your face and then hold it behind him.
So
And
uncool.
it was so cool. I'm like,
So
I wish I
uncool.
could do that.
Just like he'd show it to you, and then he'd step back and shoot it. You'd be like, "There it was. You had it. You couldn't pick it up." What else? What's You have another one on here, Robert.
David and Goliath. It's a book by Malcolm Gladwell.
Excellent.
I've been wanting to read that for a long time, and now I'm so far through it. Book on tape, wonderful, from Libby. Super recommend Libby. I don't know if you have a
I use
library in
Libby
your
all
area,
the time. Yeah.
yeah, that subscribes to Libby, but typically a large city library like New York City, Los Angeles City, San Francisco, they typically have the big subscription to Libby. I think there's like 3 layers of subscription.
Yeah.
So, if you're in one of those big cities, when the library is open, you want to get one of their cards and
Yeah.
then hook up to Libby. And, I guess, what was the last book I
In New York City, you need to have an address. So if you have friends or relatives in these cities, you can hook up using their addresses, just another person at their address. Same with Chicago, you requires an address. So I actually had an address from some relatives in Chicago. So Chicago is on my Libby. I have actually Sacramento didn't require an address, so I got them on my Libby account.
Yeah, I've
you
got
can just
like
go through
5
all of your.
Yeah, I've got like San Francisco, Beverly Hills, Culver City, which is LA County, LA
Yeah.
City, Santa Monica. Don't waste your time. Just go to a big city like Los Angeles, New York,
Yeah.
Chicago. That's all you need, because
LA
all those
County is great.
it's not as big. They don't have as many copies. They don't have as wide a breadth of books. But I also, just before Malcolm Gladwell's book, read Elton John's autobiography, which for somebody who grew up in like the 70s and 80s, wanting to know what's the background to a lot of this stuff that he sang and Bernie Taupin wrote, it was great. And what I learned is that Elton John was a real asshole. for so long.
Didn't you watch Rocket Man?
No, I want to see that now.
Oh my God, he's a jerk in Rocket Man, but
Yeah,
a lot of
I mean,
it
like-
seemed to have been drug and alcohol fueled.
Yeah, it sounds like he, he's not a large man, but he must have snorted 2 to 3 times his body weight in cocaine.
Yeah,
Crazy.
that it was the 70s, man. That's what happened.
Yeah.
So I have one that a friend of mine turned me on to called the Team Deakins podcast. It's Deakins, Deakins, and this is a famous cinematography team, a husband and wife cinematography team, and they really dive deep into lens choices. And he did the cinematography for a lot of movies. Then he started getting into animation, and he was the consultant to Disney, Pixar when they started to do WALL-E. And so he brought this cinematography sensibility to animation. It's about 6 or 7 episodes. They're diving deep into lighting, and he lights a lot with natural light. That's a really good podcast if you're into film and sort of wanting to see a little bit behind the curtain of film. I'm reading a book by Francis Farquhar called The History of the Sierra Nevada, which is a really interesting look at the early crossings right before and during when they found gold in the Sierra Nevada. So it talks about the Donner Party and a little bit of detail, but not too much, and a lot of other interesting things. So if you're interested in learning about, the Sierra Nevada and its early history, that's a good book. And if you are into chefs and you're into Alton Brown's show Good Eats, and you're into watching chefs and humans, celebrities in general, just throw their brands out the window, the Alton Brown YouTube channel is amazing. He is just like out of control. He burns tortilla chips. They're drinking margaritas. It's just a very different look into the life of a celebrity chef. We do have a couple of letters that I brought on here from Facebook and Twitter, which we have not answered in a really long time. So from Facebook, Benjamin Cohen on May 4th, dang, Mel, I'm listening to the broadcast from yesterday, and you just diagnosed Elon with bipolar disorder. Didn't you? ? I was looking to see if he's ever been diagnosed, but I only see accusations and no concrete medical conclusions. I'm not saying he isn't, but you are qualified to make the diagnosis. Are you on record saying he is? Does it matter? I honestly don't know anymore.
I am not qualified to make this diagnosis. I am a physician, but I am not his physician. I am not a psychiatrist. I'm just saying he has apparently many of the traits. For example, one year buying 5 houses, the next year selling them. This is very manic-like activity.
We had a twit message from James Curry, who thanked you for the podcast on COVID and Talking Tesla. We had another one in February 2018. On February 18th of 2020 from @4hornbornboy, BOI. He wanted to tell us he loves the show. And me and him have been texting back and forth about Google Stadia, which is a new online gaming platform. I asked my son about it. He says it probably has like some bandwidth issues, but I thought it would be really cool if you could add Google Stadia to the Tesla entertainment system, and then you could basically have any online gaming game that you could get and play it in your Model 3. I thought that would be actually very, very cool. And way back in 2019, Stephanie at SAODZYNZ messaged us about her solar install with Powerwalls in Dubuque, Iowa, and she was getting 100% of her electricity offset in Iowa, which is pretty darn cool with solar and Powerwalls. And I have been meaning to reach out to her and see how that's been going. And when we originally were talking, she sent me a very long message, and I appreciate it. They charge her 18 cents per kilowatt hour. That's the cost of her energy. And when she produces more than she has, they're willing to buy it back, and they pay 2 to 4 cents for it. So that's
great.
That's really nice of them, don't you think?
Yeah, that's
and then
typical.
They do, like, they have a Model X, and they've actually replaced all their electricity, even though they charge their X at home, which is also pretty awesome. And they do these long road trips in the Model X. So very cool. Thanks. We are paying attention every once in a while to the Twitter and to the Facebook and to the other things. So keep those messages coming. We appreciate everybody who's watched. Really nice to see everybody messaging and the community kind of talking to each other on the YouTube as we're going on. Very nice to hear from Joel Sapp, who we haven't really heard from in a while. So obviously we're all very, very appreciative of everybody who listens to this this show that we, you know, put our labors of love into every couple of weeks.
Yeah, in fact,
Yes.
Joel just invited me to Florida to go see the Crew Dragon demo #2.
You can't go, buddy.
I'm
You're locked down.
yeah, no, I'm kind of stuck at work. Not that I don't want to be, but I'm kind of itching to see that. It was supposed to be a while ago, but you know, things have been delayed. We'll see. That should be cool. I can't wait. It's
Yeah.
supposed to be the first demo, you know, was with the dummy or with the dummy and the floating Earth. So this one, end of the month, we'll see.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, the show is
People
Talking
hate that,
Tesla.
by the way.
Yeah, that's why we do it. We do these less often now. Elon daily, then became Elon today. Things have been busy. There's been a virus.
Elon never.
Elon whenever we can get to it. But at least we're getting to it more than I thought we would.
Yeah.
It's good.
Yeah.
So thanks, boys. We'll do another one of these soonish. And for
Thanks to
everybody
all
out
the
there,
Patreon supporters.
yes, thanks to you. Wash your hands. Don't cough on each other. Physically distance, but don't socially distance.
Yeah.
You know?
I think we should have a mask. I think we should have a mask that says,
Talking Tesla.
I like talking Tesla.
We've talked
because-
about it
Yeah, we
Maybe it
have.
should just be
last time.
Elon. Maybe it should just be Elon's mouth and then a big red
Wow.
circle through it so he shuts up.
Oh,
Tom. And
how
on
about a
that
pair of
note,
gloves? A pair of gloves where the fingers are stuck together and you can't actually tweet.
No
so
thumbs.
upsetting.
No thumbs.
All right,
All
kids. We'll talk to you
Thank you.
soon.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.